Welcome back to the WAAR Room, my beautiful people, fight fans from all around the world. This is your Lesbian Fight Club edition of the WAAR Room, and I'm here with my beautiful co-host, my brother, Mr. Eddie Goldman, and my sister, Melissa Smith. You guys, what's happening today?
What's up? How you all doing?
We're good. We're good. Listen,
spring, first day of spring. Yay.
Yes, it is a first day of spring. Are now, like, I have allergies, so I'm not really excited about the first day of spring because the pollen count is usually way too damn high. So I'm popping Benadryl, but you know, I'm glad it's sun shining. I wish it would rain a little bit, but we're all good here in Cali. So I heard it was 70 degrees in New York the other day. Is that true?
Yeah, it was. It's in the 60s today.
Damn. I can't imagine what summer's gonna be like for you guys.
Yeah, it's 63 right now, and it's 6 p.m. So yeah.
I'll send you guys some ocean breeze that way. But look, today we're gonna be talking about what I do during my work time, which is I teach LGBT folks how to defend themselves, because we have stupid ass sitting members of Congress who have no problem getting on national television and advocating for violence against the LGBT community, specifically the trans community. So I have a lot of issues with that. So I formed the Lesbian Fight Club, but it's all inclusive. Anybody and everybody can show up. And we do this in West Hollywood. And today I want to introduce you guys to one of my clients, my buddy, and she's a member of the Lesbian Fight Club and also a member of the L Project, which is also a lesbian art and tech organization here in West Hollywood. Marna, bring your butt on over here. Come on down. So this is Marna. What's up? You guys say hey to Marna.
Hey,
What's
Manu.
up? How you doing?
Great to see you.
How long have we been fighting? Like, we've been boxing like 5 years now, right?
Yep, about 5 or 6 years, yeah.
Right. And still to this day, there's a lot to learn. That's what I told Marna today. I don't know shit about boxing. You two are my experts. Okay. I'm the coaching. I can coach you guys through a workout, but I'm no boxing coach. Okay. I can show you how to hit a little bit, but not in terms of strategy and all that other shit. I'll let real coaches do that.
But to me, you're my boxing.
Right, because you know I'll kick your ass. So, but anyway, so let's talk a little bit about how do you feel about city members of Congress really like out there advocating for people to just walk up to us and just do whatever if they feel like we look trans or gay or lesbian or whatever they feel like.
It's infuriating. And in fact, it doesn't just affect the gay community, it affects the straight community, because if you don't have an appearance that fits the stereotype of what a straight person should be, you're assumed gay, you're open to violence.
Absolutely. And how do you feel like have you learned anything? Have I taught you anything over the last 5 years? I need to know that.
Taught me a lot. Yeah, right. I feel like if something happened, I have a chance.
Right. Because she's not the tallest client I've ever had.
I like telling people that I'm 4'12" and let them look at me and say, you don't look that short, you look at least 5 foot.
Exactly. So if you guys are interested in supporting what we do, sometimes we donate a lot of our time and money to the L Project. We're always taking donations. You guys can check us out at thelproject.org and check us out on Facebook at the L Project LA and on Instagram at the L Project LA. So you guys have any questions for Marna?
Well, I just have a comment. When you're shorter than an attacker, and I'm going to assume that most attackers would be male, you probably have a clearer shot to their more vulnerable parts. So the attacker is probably taller than you. So there could be an advantage or a disadvantage. Yeah. So if you want to just strike them in the nuts, you know, it might be a little easier than a person of the same height or taller. Yeah.
Although today we were working out this morning, and I don't have a lot of flexibility in my body. It's hard for me to get my leg up. And in practicing kicks today, I realized I could go right for a kneecap. I can just kick the kneecap straight on. and debilitate someone that way.
That's good. That's always good.
Right. I
Yeah,
always,
debilitate and stomp.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to stomp when they're down and then run like hell out of there because they're not going to be able to
Yeah.
chase you.
Exactly. So now we're going to segue into our next topic of conversation. Oh wait, before I move on, I wanted to ask you guys, did you guys see Kali Reis, her movie, Catch the Fire?
Yes.
Oh
Catch the
my
Fire
God.
is fantastic film.
I've
I
been
haven't seen it. What's it on?
like it's on, you can rent it on Amazon. So Kali Reis, Eddie sent me.
Kali Reis is the super welterweight boxing champion, two belts. And she has been boxing for quite some time. And she is a Native American and is very huge representative of that community. And as a boxer, she's the first female champion from that community. She's also African American, so she has a lot of depth, if you will, in terms of understanding the problems within the Indigenous community, because she's also representative of that smaller group. And the film that she did is about the issue of young women who are disappeared from their communities and trafficked for sex. And in this film, she plays a woman who's a fighter whose sister goes missing, and she decides to search for her and takes things into her own hand to their logical conclusion. The brilliance of this is that this is based on her story. She assisted in this developing the screenplay, and she acted for her first time as an actor in this film. And she was even nominated for the Best Actress category for the Independent Spirit Awards this year, which is just extraordinary.
So this is a true story. Her sister went missing.
It's not a true story, but it is based on a reality within Indigenous communities where women are just disappeared.
It actually,
beaten,
now, that
They're
community,
trafficked.
large amount of disappearance.
Yeah.
No one is looking into.
And, there's often drugs involved. And this film really is very, very hard hitting, literally and physically, because she also boxes in the film, which is great. But more to the point is she is, as a boxer, she has taken on the mantle of being an activist for and on behalf of women who are abused within the Indigenous community and what that means, and using her platform as an athlete, as an elite athlete, to really voice what those concerns are and not to hold anything back. So this really was an extraordinary film, and so worth seeing, if painful, because as you were talking about developing strategies for being attacked, and the fact that in the larger culture, it seemed like it's open season on gay and lesbian, on the LGBTQ community. It's also open season on non-white women and non-white men in many communities, and the same thing for Indigenous women. So it's very important for us to recognize the importance of what those unique community stories are and how we can support them, and also what those synergies are and what the intersections are between our communities, whether it's Indigenous and Black or Indigenous and LGBTQ, or that the whole notion of us being able to take care of ourselves and not be victims to the larger social constructs, and not be victims amongst ourselves. So it's hugely important.
Well said. That's what I'm talking about right there. So if you
Yeah,
guys,
I'm back, by the way. My internet connection went out as usual. So thank you,
that's
Spectrum.
that's a New York connection.
Yeah. So I missed where that movie is. What's
It's
I
on
believe it's on Amazon now. I mean, you got to pay for it, and you can find it in other locales, but it's definitely on, I believe, on Amazon Prime or through Amazon. You can view it. You don't have to buy it necessarily. I think you can rent it.
No, I supported her. I bought the film. First,
Yeah, I did too.
if I
Yeah.
wanted to add it to my digital collection, and then after I watched it, I immediately bought it. I was like, I have to.
Yeah, it's hugely important as a work. And again, it amplifies something that we prefer not to know about.
Right.
We don't want to know about pain. We don't want to know about trafficking of women, young women. And it was a, if it's a white blonde girl, sorry,
Yeah.
fine. Oh, it'll hit the headlines.
Right.
But a young Indigenous girl who is from a marginal community, nobody cares.
Yeah. So sad.
That's the truth of it.
We have to do
So-
better as a community, but it's conversations like this where we raise awareness, we get it out there, and that's that's.
Yeah, and it's important to again, as you say, Chris, to have the dialogue, but also to recognize that there are affinities here and there are intersections of experience.
Right.
I'm 67 years old. It never occurred to me that I would have to worry about my daughter walking down the street at night.
Right.
It breaks my freaking heart
Right.
that I have to worry about that shit for her. Never mind for me. Or that,
she
it's sort of
boxes?
teaching her, she's an Aikido person,
All right.
and has done self-defense, but, teaching her how to walk with keys in her hand, how to walk down a city sidewalk, not too close to the doorways, not too close, walking down the middle, how you use windows to keep safe.
Yeah.
It's crazy shit. But
That's-
here we are.
Here
Yeah,
we
there
are.
are probably better things than Aikido to complement, particularly boxing and wrestling, the two things.
Yeah, she's
Street
boxed.
fight is very short, but those things can end things rather quickly. And
Yeah,
that's
she's a
what you wanna
boxer.
do, end it quickly and get the hell out of there.
I mean, look, I took
I
Krav
think all
Maga
the-
last year, and that was so helpful to me because I'm a boxer. I've been boxing 25 years, but Krav Maga taught me how to scream out friggin' loud, and just go for somebody's throat,
Right.
throw an elbow.
Right.
What are you
Right.
losing? I am losing nothing if I break the asshole's nose. I don't care. Take
Yeah.
me to jail. Oops, sorry.
Because it's
I'm old.
self-defense rather than sport. There are all sorts of
Exactly.
things you can't do. You can't do in boxing. You can't in any combat sport has rules, and there are a whole bunch of things you can't do. On the street, it's not a sport.
No,
Well,
it's survival.
Actually, that kind of came up this morning. We had someone who joined our group this morning, and we were getting ready to spar and realized it for this woman, she was having so much trouble with it. It wasn't because she didn't know how to throw the punches. It was because she was so socialized as a woman
Yes.
in our community that she couldn't allow herself. And I'm like, just hit my gloves. That's all. Not me, just the gloves. I can't hit someone. So we spent a while just getting her to just tap. That was a breakthrough for her as a woman.
I have written about that when the first time I hit somebody in a gym, I burst into tears.
Wow.
And it took me a long time to even learn how to hit a heavy bag.
Yeah.
So I went through that experience. Again, women in my generation in particular, it's like, oh, good girl.
Same
She's
generation.
a young girl though. I mean, a young
Yeah, she
lady, I
is.
should say. She's not a girl, but she's a young
But it's
lady.
it's
Yeah.
the socialization, you're absolutely right, and breaking through one's own imprisonment of one's own power, because we're also socialized not to have power,
And actually, that surprised me
not
because
to
she was.
assert
I know.
power.
I'm also in my 60s. We were socialized to be that way. And I had assumed that the younger women
No.
were feeling more power. And that's actually what I love about the Lesbian Fight Club, is that it's an opportunity for these women to get out and break into it.
Yeah, learn how
Yes.
to try, get comfortable being hit and hitting.
Get comfortable and fit and get comfortable with your own power. I call it the circle of power, where you extend your arm out and then suddenly you're, okay, you're 4'12", but you got 4'12" arms, And every time you throw a jab and you're going forward, you're extending your circle
Yeah.
of power, just as when you're going back. So it's that construct that it's not just your physical body, it's your circle of power. It's that space between you and it, you and the other, where you exude that protection. It's sort of like I walk down the street now, I have more confidence. I could still get attacked,
Right.
but I am more confident. And because I feel more confident when I walk down the street, people won't necessarily mess with me.
Right.
Because they're like, they don't know. Is she a victim or not a victim?
Yeah.
They don't know.
Exactly. You don't want to appear to be a victim.
No.
So I always say, I don't need a weapon because I am a weapon.
Look mean. Practice your mean face.
All right.
And elbow strikes, man. You
And
got an
I
elbow
Keep them
for a
elbows
reason.
and knees to the nuts. Knees to the nuts.
That's always good. Or just a punch or grab,
And the
you know,
heel of
just
your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And the
Protect your-
throat.
palm strikes, which are used in different martial
Right
arts.
here.
And
and
to the
here.
throat too. And to the throat.
Yes, that's another good area to hit.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's important also to emphasize why this is needed, because a lot of martial arts and self-defense gyms and classes are run by straight up reactionaries tied into police departments, white supremacists. This is something really around the world that I discussed with some people that really cover this, that it seems that the majority of the martial arts all over are tied in with various reactionaries, as said, white supremacists, anti-LGBTQ, misogynists, and so forth. Not everybody, but the bulk of them that
right.
run these. So what
UFC
you're
crowd.
doing is absolutely necessary. And what we've seen, particularly in the last few years since the rise of Trump and open reaction and trying to roll back every gain that's been made by people in society, we've seen you got the Lesbian Fight Club in LA, you got the Gay Fight Club in Brooklyn, you have all sorts of different LGBTQ self-defense and martial arts groups being trained all over the place. You got next year in Australia, the World Gay Boxing Championships will be taking place, and
In Australia, we should go to that, Marna.
All right.
Martin
Take
it's
a lottery
World
now.
Pride. I think World Pride is in Australia next year.
Wow.
So
World
Martin
Pride.
Stark is the one that set this up,
Oh,
and he got sanctioned. He got approval from Boxing Australia and the various professional sanctioning bodies. He's gotten a lot of support for that event. So, you know, we'll again there travel problems. We'll see what happens with COVID, but it's very, very important that he's doing that event. And these are the kind of things that everybody should really support, whether you're LGBTQ or not, because there's the old saying, an injury to one is an injury to all. And this is particularly important in this period. You got Putin regime, which is virulently and openly anti-LGBTQ,
Oh, yeah.
just basically wanting to set the world on fire to impose their medieval reactionary views on everybody, destroy Ukraine, commit war crimes, crimes against humanity. And this is going on all over the place. And they have support from many different Republican politicians and others. Some are openly saying it, some are keeping sort of quiet, but they're really supporting that. And you could give a million examples of this. The attack on trans kids and trans athletes and the families of trans kids in Texas, they want to investigate them. All this stuff is just absolutely horrendous and trying to roll back everything. So all these initiatives are something that really have to be supported.
Yeah.
And this is why I think this is important in terms of the overall work that we've been doing in terms of fighting corruption and for social justice in the combat sports and in boxing.
I know. Thank you, Eddie, for that commentary. All right, look, we're going to let Marna go, and we're going to move on to our next segment. Marna, thank you for dropping in. It's been real. We'll see you next time, my friend. So look.
Thank you.
Okay, tell me what's going on now with the IBA. I see that Gazprom still has their tentacles just wrapped all around by way of a sponsor contract. So Eddie, give us an update on that, please.
Yeah, well, the IBA, formerly AIBA, was deeply in debt for some very suspicious type of deals that they had. And Gazprom, which is the Russian energy monopoly, one of the energy monopolies, state controlled, came in and paid off their debt and helped put in Umar Kremlev as the president of the renamed IBA, which they renamed it last year. And apparently it's their sole source of funding. And even the IOC said that's not good to just have one source of funding. This is last year. This didn't happen last night or just when Russia attacked Ukraine. This happened in April of 2021. And later in 2021, they had their elections, and Kremlev was elected president overwhelmingly. There were hardly any votes against him. Now, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there are many people saying that you have to kick out Russian and Belarusian organizations and fighters. Well, they still haven't thrown out the Russian or Belarusian boxing federations. They said, well, we won't allow them into the next big event, which is the Women's World Championships in May. But then they're trying to reverse that and try to push through the leadership. Well, let's let people from Belarus fight. And of course, that would be an easy way in to let Russian fighters coming in into Belarus. But that apparently was voted down. And they just said that, and this was Sean McGoldrick, the writer for the Irish Independent, did a really good job exposing this, how some of these federations now are complaining and saying that they should cut ties with Gazprom, but IBA, Kovacs, the general secretary, said, we can't do that because they're totally dependent on them. They don't have any other sponsors. So there's now been this alliance formed by these boxing federations from the US, the UK, France, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and apparently a couple of other countries. But these are the same countries that voted in Kremlev and accepted that Gazprom was not just a sponsor, but their general partner. So this is just hypocrisy. And why can't all these countries, a number of which are very rich, get sponsors for IBA? The reason is the organization is corrupt, it's decrepit. Amateur boxing, Olympic boxing really isn't that popular anyway to begin with. So why can't they get any of the traditional Olympic sponsors, big companies like McDonald's or Visa or AT&T or Coca-Cola or whatever, or any other company that's a rival of theirs, it's not an Olympic sponsor, to sponsor them? Very simple. They don't want to attach their name to this thing. They don't want to attach their name to a corrupt organization. So now they're really between a rock and a hard place. And it's very clear that they're trying to find a way to get the Russian and Belarusian boxers back into their competition. And that's what Gazprom wants. So who's really pulling the strings? The old line, follow the money. And so they're dependent on the Gazprom money. And this is the direction that they're going in. And this is one of the, as we've discussed before, one of the Olympic federations headed by a Russian. And it's not just any Russian, it's somebody that's tied into the various money interests in Russia. And this is the result that you get, is utter chaos. And it proves my point once again, there's no basis for continued all-inclusive world sport, including countries like Russia and some others, which are totally corrupt. The sporting establishment is totally corrupt. And now you have Russia's war against everything, against Ukraine, and they've specifically said it's against the West and Western values and against democracy and everything else. And now they're in this position, and it's made the IOC look really stupid because they were suspended a couple of years ago by the IOC. Now it's going to be very difficult for the IOC to reinstate them. And if unless there's another international boxing federation founded, dude, on the Olympic level, you could have in 2028 in Los Angeles no boxing in the Olympics, because the IOC might run it one more time again in Paris in 2024, even if the IBA is not reinstated. But the future is not good for amateur and Olympic boxing. And if that goes down the drain, we know the effect it'll have on professional boxing overall. I think who might step in will be sort of out of the frying pan and into the fire. One of these oil monarchies in the Middle East, which you seem to be funding a lot of things, throwing some money at IBA as a sponsor. I think that's certainly a possibility too, so that they can control them more. And those people are connected more with the IOC hierarchy. But again, that's going to be sports washing. It's going to be another type of sports washing where these horrible authoritarian absolute monarchies say, oh, look, we're modern, we're sponsoring these sports and all this kind of stuff. So
That is all bullshit.
it doesn't look good because of this has been run so terribly run. And
The other thing too to raise is that on Saturday, this weekend, Putin held a rally ostensibly to start their own Paralympic Games because they were kicked out of the Paralympic Games in Beijing. And he was using that to call, dubious, biased refereeing and slander, hostile antics, politically, how the anti-doping bureaucracy has become a politically engaged dictatorship. So, I mean, he was pulling out crazy shite, at this rally with all these Russians waving flags, and PS, we're fighting the anti-fascists and including the doping. So anti-doping, I mean, it literally is 1984 here. We're just, good is bad, bad is good. Those kinds of distortions only add into the obfuscation of what is really going on here, which is corruption in sports. And to your point, Eddie, who knows, maybe we'll see Dubai, which is now in league with, the Kinahan people, Probellum and so on, to make Dubai the center of boxing in the Middle East. We're trying to replace Las Vegas. So, who knows, maybe they're going to throw in some coin to sort of say, no, we'll start supporting amateur sports in the way that, MTK Global was doing that years ago and starting these little gyms everywhere, but get into the world of amateur boxing as feeders to the professional side, public service kind of nonsense. So yeah, there's really a lot of opportunity in this. If there is a vacuum wherein Gazprom has to pull out, or IBA is reorganized yet once again with new funding streams, there are those possibilities for corruption and dubious practice. So
yeah, I don't.
Not a good thing.
I just don't see the IBA being, doing this makeover, because you would have to drop it down to skeleton crew. You might as well just dissolve the whole organization and start from scratch. That's basically how it should be, I think. And anyway, but look, we're going to be talking about this forever because those fools are not going away. Gazprom has invested too much money, and IBA and IOC are just going to do whatever Gazprom and Putin tells them to do.
yeah, and it's also that what Melissa said about this whole situation in Dubai, the cat was let out of the bag in terms of the relationship of Kinahan, the alleged head of an international drug money laundering and gun running cartel, and Probellum, it probably inadvertently and stupidly, this guy Rai Taimur Khan Badi, who is a provincial minister for sport for Punjab, Pakistan, put up on Twitter openly some photos of himself with Kinahan in Dubai right after the Probellum shows that took place this past weekend. And this guy wrote, met Probellum on aligning vision on boxing for Punjab and how to make the sport bigger for our youth. Looking forward to hosting Daniel, in the picture of Kinahan, in Lahore, which is in Pakistan, to discuss Pakistan's first international fight with foreign world-class boxers.
Oh,
So,
God.
in other words, he's openly saying he went to Dubai to meet with the Probellum people, and he's working out this deal with Kinahan. And there are all these pictures in this luxurious hotel of this guy and Kinahan, and he's inviting him to Pakistan. So a lot of people have said that you got all these fighters who are associated with MTK on the Probellum card,
Mhm.
and ostensibly the president of Probellum is Richard Schaefer, who people know from boxing, from Golden Boy, and has been around for a long period of time, and is based in LA now, formerly, from Switzerland. But where did all this money come from to run all these shows, have all these international cards, flying people all around the world into Dubai, where there's really not much of a natural boxing market that goes on there? And they recently got some TV deals, but they started off without any TV or streaming. So where did all this money come from? And now you see them openly meeting with Kinahan. So the cat was let out of the bag in this situation, and
That
they're
bag is
just,
getting bigger.
and that's where
Yeah,
professional
that
it
boxing
really
getting
is.
bigger.
going.
It's bigger, and they're all sport washing each other.
Yeah, that's
I
just
mean,
crazy.
it's like, okay, we'll get rid of this guy, but we'll go from
It's a
here to here.
shuffle. Like we used to do at FedEx, we used to reorganize our crews. Like if you was doing something, you put that person over here, you just changed your shirt. That's all. You still in
You
the
just
same
change
work
your
for the
shirt,
same
same,
people. Right.
same thing.
Right. And Kinahan is involved with most of the major boxing promoters. Eddie Hearn has been promoting a lot of his fighters, as we've mentioned. We have Schaefer with Probellum. Of course, you have Tyson Fury. It's co-promoted by Bob Arum and Frank Warren, and many others. I don't know if there's any PBC connections, since they seem to be more just.
Oh, they done blacked out PBC. They don't want no part
No.
of that. Al
Now,
Heyman.
PBC doesn't seem to be, and
They're not in that mix.
Right,
but you
but
got
it's almost-
Bella in there, you got all the other UK people in
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
Yep.
You got Boxer, you got Sky Sports, they're all
Right.
in
Sky
each other's-
Sports, which is Sky, which is part of Comcast, which owns NBC. There are all kinds of connections. And so they've moved beyond just the MTK name and just sort of spreading like a virus all throughout
Yep.
professional boxing.
Exactly.
Yeah, but as I said, I think it bears watching to see how the amateurs play out through all of this, because it's another way of getting a lot of money, and a pipeline. And they are, MTK Global is already in all these gyms all over the world,
All over the
sponsoring
world.
a lot of clubs, sponsoring amateurs and bringing them along as amateurs and then signing them up. So that might be bear some watching down the line. And again, I'm convinced that sports betting is in there. Just don't know where. I haven't found it yet.
Well,
But
Well, yeah,
Oh,
because you can always do that very privately. One way or
exactly.
another, you could monkey around with the results and place
Yep.
place a bet on some unlikely outcome to a fight. There are all sorts of ways of doing it. And how much of this is, there are some people in the media, the Irish media in general has been great about this, But outside of that, there are a couple of people in the boxing media here and there who talk about it, but in the main, they don't want to talk about
They
this
don't want to
because,
talk about it.
yeah,
Oh.
because they'll lose
Scared off.
access.
Curbs the money. That's
Yeah,
They're
there
scared.
curbs the
basically
money flow.
they exist as propagandists for the promoters and networks, and
Right.
they'll lose access to the fights if they really hammer this home.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, look, I think that's about enough of the IBA shenanigans we're going to talk about today. We will be back next week for sure to talk about whatever Eddie wants us to talk about. But in the
Well, we'll see
meantime,
what comes up. I just want to make one additional comment about wrestling that came out over the
killing
last
me right
weekend.
now, Eddie.
We don't have the ratings yet, but the NCAA Division I Wrestling Championships concluded in Detroit. As usual, in the new Little Caesars Arena in the middle of Detroit on Woodward, they sold out every session. They had a huge crowd there as well. The big story, though, is the big star of wrestling, Gable Steveson, won another NCAA title. He, of course, last year in Tokyo was Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling, and he left his shoes on the mat, retiring from real wrestling. But he's going to the WWE, doing the fake wrestling now. And why he put on such a dominant performance, and I tweeted about this also, is that it's really sad that now that Stevenson's a star in real wrestling, there's no place for him there anymore because it's so poorly run, so few people care about it, that and he's young, he's like, what, about 21, and this is his time to make some money, and he has to go and, he may like this WWE. I don't know if he knows what it's really like, what it's really like there, but he has to leave real wrestling. And it's been true of other people. And this really highlights again how horribly run this has been. And I'll be trying to be commenting a little bit more on that. But wrestling could be a major, real professional sport if it were properly run. I said this for a long time, and it hasn't been properly run. Corruption, stupidity, amateurishness in running it, and that's kind of where we're left today. It's very sad.
Sad, very sad. And that's where we're going to leave it, folks. All right, Melissa, I want you to tell people where they can find you, sis.
You got it, babe. I am at Girl Boxing Now on Twitter and on Instagram, and my website is girlboxing.org. And just thank you for this opportunity to talk to you all about the things I love.
What we love, that's right, women's boxing. You guys need to pick up her book on Amazon, The Women's History of Boxing. Did I get that right?
A history of women's boxing.
A history of women's boxing,
because I wasn't arrogant enough to say it was the history. It was the first,
right,
and it's
that's
A.
right. That's right.
I hope there are many who follow me into this field.
That's right. We need more people like you, Melissa. All right, Eddie, tell the people where they can find you, brother.
Yeah, on Twitter at NHB News, tweeting a lot about combat sports, a lot about Ukraine and Russian political stuff too, and some baseball and some other sports stuff. The Patreon page that I mentioned, support independent journalism, because you're going to see stuff on there that you're not going to get on these major sites that are all controlled by the promoters and networks. It's patreon.com/Eddie Goldman. And I will be having on Tuesday, I guess it'll just sort of be an online semi-online birthday party. Yeah, they'll be doing that maybe on Twitter or something like that. So
hey, we can do a birthday spaces for you tomorrow, Eddie, on Twitter.
Oh.